All right, turning now to some numbers about credit card debt that hits a pretty dubious milestone here in the U.S. Go ahead and take a look. Americans now owe over $1 trillion on their credit card. Balances are up 10% over a year ago. That's a record. And the average balance is over $6,000. That's another record there. So joining me now is Susan Tompor. She's a financial columnist with the Detroit Free Press. Susan, it's great to see you. All right, we know that inflation is coming down, but when you look at numbers like this, it shows that families are still in distress.
It does show that a little bit. The families use the plastic, the credit cards to kind of get over the hump, if you will, on higher prices. But the one thing you want to note about that $6,000, it does include people who pay off their balance every month. And the experts I talked to said, about roughly half of the people are paying off their balances every month. So if you're paying off your balance every month, you might not be under financial stress, if you will. You're not paying more than 20%. Many people are paying nearly 21% on average for their credit cards. It's a unusually high level. It's because of a string of rate hikes by the Federal Reserve that began in March of 2022. So 2 years ago, credit card rates were on average about 16%. So they've jumped up quite a bit.
Yeah. So when you say 20 or 21% and carrying that, if you are the ones that are carrying the balance from month to month on that, what is the strategy to try to change that? Is it transferring to another card, or how can you start to even tackle some of that?
Well, some of the experts I talked to recently said one of the things that you might want to start considering is cleaning up. I'm going to just say clean up your act, if you will. Try to pay down some credit card debt. Stop charging as best you can. Because the reason you're going to want to do this is down the line, the Federal Reserve is going to be lowering interest rates. They'll be cutting rates possibly beginning in May, having a string of rate cuts going through 2025 and a few maybe in 2026. The opportunity for you, if you clean up your credit score and build that score, and I'm not saying go out and hire somebody and pay a lot of money to do that. This is stuff you can do on your own. Make sure you pay your bills on time. Make sure you're not overextending on your credit cards. And this can help you perhaps refinance to a lower rate. You'll get better offers. I think those strategies are perhaps better than transferring balances right now. It's possible you might be getting some offers for 0%. If you do get a 0% offer, your credit score is that good and you want to transfer a balance, you can do that. But make sure you pay it off during that time, because you're not guaranteed that 0% for very long. If you're getting a bonus, maybe a profit sharing check right now at General Motors or Ford, Stellantis hasn't announced theirs, but there'll be some down the line there. You might want to seriously consider paying off credit card debt as one of the bigger moves to make with your finances, because it really will help. So not everybody's under stress, and the economists are not in a panic right now. Delinquencies have ticked up. Some people are not paying their bills on time. They're not, 90 days late. That's the number they watch. So that is being carefully watched. But the economists say right now, overall for the macro economy, they're not alarmed. It sounds alarming to you and me to hear $1.13 trillion of record credit card debt.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound great, especially when during the pandemic, people weren't pulling out their credit cards. But younger consumers are using the credit cards more as they're building up their, households and buying furniture, doing other things. So, some of it is demographics as well.
Yeah, let's talk about things that might make economists a little bit alarmed, but this that we're watching for coming out later on this week. We're waiting for the producer price index for January, and also U of M releases their preliminary customer survey for February as well, and those will have impacts. What are you watching for, and how that gives a kind of an overall picture of where we're at? Because the stock market right now is hovering in record territory.
Absolutely, it's very optimistic about those rate cuts. The federal government will be releasing numbers tomorrow. The Bureau of Labor Statistics will be giving us some information on inflation. So those numbers are going to be watched as well to see where inflation is pulling back. If inflation is pulling back more, that gives the Fed more room to start cutting rates, perhaps in May. Right now, they're saying the Fed won't cut rates in March at the next meeting. As we've talked about before, these things change rapidly. I wouldn't bet on anything at this point, because it's been a moving target all along. But I do think we're going to start seeing seeing those rate cuts in spring, and that's what we're watching. I think it's really important, though, to pay attention to layoffs. You're seeing them in some industries, whether we see them in more across the board. That's really where people are going to get hurt more. And I think that's why it could be more alarming. You don't know when you're going to lose a job if you have a lot of credit card debt. Right now, people are under the assumption that they'll be able to get a better paying job, and maybe they will because of the tight labor market. But that, I think, is where things will really start to get a little bit more difficult immediately, in the near-term future. If you have a layoff coming, or if you see more layoffs in your neighborhood, people tend to get a little more edgy, and it does cause more problems. So I think it is a good time just to try to, as I said, clean up your act. Try to do what you can to prepare.
Yeah, it never hurts to have that emergency fund in place 6 months or more. All right, Susan Tomper, financial columnist with the Detroit Free Press, and always a great source of information. We so appreciate your time, and you can read her at freep.com.
Thanks a lot.
All right, it's good to see you, Susan. Take care.